Okay, today is Wednesday, 5:35 a.m. It is November 5th, 2025. I just made a couple of trades uh, to mostly conclude the trading session for uh, the third day of trading session for this week. And I saw a commonality in the couple of trades that I took, and that is uh, having a consciousness of the risk plus knowing what my profit target is and then having an idea where my stop loss is. Okay? And then also at the same time having an idea the volatility of the security that I'm trading and at the same time understanding where the entry point is. Okay? And then once the trade is entered, having the wherewithal to hold on to it, to allow the trade to breathe, even though my emotion is saying if it's slightly in profit, take it. I mean that's what my mind is saying. The other part is if the trade is going against me, I have to fight the 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 idea that the trade is going to turn around because I have to, at a certain point, know that the trade is going to be, it won't return, okay? As soon as it crosses a certain threshold, soon as something, soon as something, so it's like what I've noticed about, trading is that there are support and resistance, okay? There's support and resistance, and sometimes the um, the profit target is on the other side of the resistance. Okay, there is there's a barrier. Okay, there's a profit target barrier that must be uh, negotiated in order to get to the profit. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll set the profit target beyond it, and because the resistance is so strong, it will not go through. And so what will happen is that it'll hit that resistance and just immediately just shoot the other side, and whatever the gain I had it just gets completely erased. So what I've noticed about the commonality now is that this is why it's so important to have the mind. Uh, I mean, the mind has to juggle all these things. If I'm a software program, okay, if I'm a software program, the uh, the combination computing system, which is not a quantum computer, right? Uh, it essentially processes it sequentially. But even though it's processing sequentially, because it is so fast, the ideas that are defaulted into considering the application of that software to completely encompass what needs to be considered in order to perform the trade is essentially instantaneous. The way that these CPUs have multi cores and things like that, and at the speed of gigahertz, it is essentially like thinking at the same time of the possibilities of what's happening, mimicking what a quantum computer is doing, right? Just instantly thinking of the possibilities, but on a combinational level. So what I've noticed is that as that my mind has to juggle all these things while maintaining the rules that I built so that I can recognize what I'm looking at, okay? Right? If I don't recognize what it is, I could be just throwing darts into the wall, okay? So so what I've noticed is that all these things are happening at the same time. That's why it's so important to, like yesterday. I mean, I was like, I made a trade. I made a trade on Nasdaq futures before the market opened, and only had two micro shares. Okay, uh, micro lots. I only had two micro lots, and one after the other. I bought one after the other, so there was two. What ended up is that it passed through support once, and then it dropped again. It passed a very strong support, dipped, and very nearly at the bottom, right? Right when I sold, it did a final candle to the downside and then started to just scream up. That just messed up my mind, okay? It just messed up my mind. And so what that means is when that emotion messes up my mind, it scatters all these things that are required in order for me to perform trading optimally, okay? Uh, so I have to have enough sleep. I have to have food. I have to have I have to make sure that my emotions are in control. I have to make sure that I have a enough energy level to process all these things. Think about the risk part of it. Also think about what each of these, like EU behaves a little different. Okay, the UJ behaves a little different. UC behaves a little different. AU behaves differently. Uh, Nasdaq behaves differently. Dow Jones behaves slightly differently. Although there's some commonality between the Nasdaq and the Dow, uh, they're not they're not very close, but they mimic each other a bit, right? So all these things need to be considered, as well as understanding, as also attempting to understand and keep in mind of the patterns that I need to recognize. Okay, is this the trend? And where's the support and resistance levels? Okay, and now how do I? So where's the entry point? Okay, so where's the profit point? So these all these things right now, uh, just being a freshly minted professional trader, is that I have to have all these things in my mind. And that's why now I see that's why it's so difficult. It was so difficult to, uh, like, like the past 5 years was so difficult because I had to make sure that became a muscle memory. All those things had to be a muscle memory. So, so this is essentially the mind of a trader. This is essentially it is the makeup of the trader. It is the mind of the trader. These are the things that are required in order to have the mind of the trader. Okay? All these things that I just mentioned, I just became aware of it. That's why some people who are essentially a part time trader, they're more suited. They're more suited to be like if they have a full time job, it would be difficult for them to do um, day trading, right? Scalping. It would be difficult for them to scalp, okay, because their mind would be partially preoccupied with the daily task that they're doing. But if they're swing trading, uh, they can do that off site. They can switch their mind in between work, right? So so they can focus on what needs to be done in order to make the right trades, right? So, but for somebody who's like a full time employee, it would be difficult to switch on and off because there's a lot of things that needs to be like repopulated into the mind in order to consider all these things. So I just realized that's why it took so much time to reprogram the mind to have the mind of the trader, essentially. Okay. Now I'm like, now I'm like, now I'm seeing it, and I'm also able to recognize there's this ego there's this ego that says, okay, so I lost a bunch, and then towards the end of it, right before the session is over, because I can't expose myself to more risk, I lose like a percent, and I'm going, oh my god, what happened? I know what happened. The mind just switched off, and fortunately, the the common sense side flipped it back on, and then stopped it before I lost my a challenge account, right? So now all these things are floating in my mind, okay? All these things are floating in my mind when I'm making these trades. So that's what I noticed about myself, okay? That's the mind of a trader. Hopefully, I covered sufficient amount that's going through my mind when I'm making a trade.